Hola todos! In this video, I'm going to walk through the entire GCSE Spanish Foundation Tier writing paper, answering each question myself to show you what an ideal answer should look like, and giving top tips along the way. The writing paper is paper 4 and the last Spanish exam you will sit. I have other videos on my channel about how to revise for the other papers, so check those out afterwards. Vamos! Let's talk about the layout of the paper for both AQA and Edexcel. Throughout the video, I will be using AQA questions. However, the general content of this video will also be applicable for Edexcel. So for AQA, question 1 is worth 8 marks, and you simply have to describe a photo in 4 short sentences. I would spend about 10 minutes on this question, and this includes time to proofread and plan, though for question 1, planning is not needed. Question 2 is a 40-word writing question worth 16 marks. This question sort of builds you up for the longer 90-word writing question later on in the paper. I would recommend spending 20 minutes on question 2, and for this one, some sort of planning is ideal. Later on in the video, I will go through an example for each question and show you what a good response looks like. Question 3 for AQA is a translation question, where you have 5 sentences in English that you need to translate into Spanish. It's 10 marks in total, so 10 minutes is plenty of time for this. And lastly, question 4 is a 90-word writing question, where you get to pick from a choice of 2 different questions. This question is actually the exact same as the first question on the higher tier paper. It's worth 16 marks, and 20 minutes is enough time to answer it. For Edexcel, question 3 and 4 are switched around, but beside that, both exam boards are quite similar. The paper itself is 1 hour and out of 50 marks. When your marks are calculated, the mark you get out of 50 will be multiplied by 1.2 to make it out of 60. This is because each one of the Spanish papers is worth 25% of the final grade, so out of 60 marks each. Okay, now to go through each question one by one. So here is the ¿Qué hay en la foto question, the first question on the paper. ¿Qué hay en la foto means what is in the photo, and you are required to answer with 4 short sentences. For example, with the photo on the left taken from the June 2018 paper, you could answer with Hay una mesa, están comiendo, hay un árbol de Navidad, hay 8 personas. At the bottom, I've included the mark scheme for this exact question. So the phrases on the left get you 2 marks each, the middle ones 1 mark, and the right ones 0 marks. With this question, as long as you know your grammar rules and can form basic sentences, because that's what these are, you will very easily be able to get full marks. However, if you are unable to understand the basic sentence structure of Spanish, you will struggle with this question. My main tip for this sort of question is to keep your answers super simple, but each one should be different enough from the others to make 4 separate sentences. And for each sentence, use a verb and a noun. Verbs like hay, meaning there is or there are perfect for this question. So exactly how I've done in my example, begin with a verb, for example hay, and then a noun, una mesa. Also, avoid extra words that may cost you marks if you use them incorrectly, so no adjectives and no connectives. This is meant to be a simple question, as it's only the first one, and as I said before, 10 minutes is plenty of time to answer it. Okay, here's where the paper really begins. Question 2 is the 40-word writing question. You get 4 bullet points. Here is an example from the June 2019 question. Tu amigo español Jaime te ha preguntado sobre tu colegio. Escríbele un email. Menciona. And then there are 4 bullet points. These are usually just sort of one-word topics that you must talk about. Profesores, so the teachers at your school. Uniforme, the uniform. Hora de comer, lunchtime. And deberes, homework. I would do a solid 4 to 5 minute plan for this question. Before I go into how I would plan, let's take a look at the moxki. For this question, 10 marks are awarded for the content, so what you write, and 6 for the quality of language, so your grammar and vocabulary. You can pause the video now to read through each mark band, but I want to point your attention to the information on the left. The second bullet point there says all bullet points are compulsory and must be covered, but there is no need for equal coverage of the bullet points. So if you do not cover one of the bullet points, whether that's accidentally or on purpose, you will be limited to a lower number of marks. But fortunately, you do not need to write the same amount of words for each, so use more words on easier bullet points. The next bullet point says, everything a candidate writes must be marked, even if it is well beyond the suggested number of words. This is sometimes a myth, but AQA confirms on the mark scheme every year that there is no limit to the number of words you write. However, writing too much will simply waste your time, and you might be more likely to make mistakes. Next bullet point down, there is no requirement in this question for the candidate to refer to events in the past or future. However, references to the past or future are acceptable. So for this question, simply writing in present tense is fine. So don't overcomplicate it with other tenses, just present tense is enough. Finally, there is no requirement for candidates to present their piece of writing in a particular way because of the context. I have seen many students begin their responses to these sorts of questions with hola amigo, etc., but that is completely unnecessary. Okay, that's the mock scheme done. Let's go back to planning and writing an answer to this question. So, to plan, I would first have a thorough read through the question, then translate each of the 4 bullet points. Next, write down keywords for each bullet point that you can use in your answer. For example, an adjective I could use to describe teachers is simpático. Finally, list some nice sentence openers. I will link below a PDF that has loads of these phrases, so memorize a few and write them down when you're planning. I have also listed different ways of saying because to avoid repeating porque. This is what a complete plan could look like, and now when I go on to writing, I can keep referring back to my plan and make sure what I write is relevant to the question and gets me as many marks as possible. Now, if you would like to, pause the video and write your own answer to this question, and if you post it in the comments below, I'd love to mark it for you. In a second, I will show you an example answer written by me. Okay, and this is how I would go about this question. Let's have a read through it. En mi opinión, mis profesores son muy simpáticos. Sin embargo, odio mi profesor de matemáticas porque es bastante estricto. This sentence is 20 words long, and that is totally fine, and allows you to use slightly fewer words for the other bullet points. This sentence translates to, in my opinion, my teachers are very nice. However, I hate my maths teacher because he is quite strict. I have used the sentence starter en mi opinión, which I said I would use in my plan. One thing to be super careful of, and that I can imagine would cause students to lose a lot of marks, is grammatical accuracy. If you know all of the grammar rules, stuff like adjective agreement, then you'll be able to get much higher marks for quality of language. The second sentence I've written about uniform is no me gusta llevar uniforme dado que es incómodo. I don't like wearing uniform because it is uncomfortable. I have used dado que, which is just another way of saying because, and llevar is a key verb when talking about uniform or clothes in general, and it means to wear. For the third bullet point about lunchtime, here's what I wrote. Pienso que la hora de comer es muy tarde y siempre tengo hambre. Again, using phrases for my plan that I've memorized before the exam. I think that lunchtime is quite late and I am always hungry. Lastly, no me gusta nada hacer los deberes. I don't like doing homework at all. Although this sentence is incredibly short at only 7 words, I have still mentioned homework and added an opinion, so it counts. I'm pretty sure that this would be a full mark answer. Hopefully now you can see that this question is not too tricky, and this builds you up for the 90-word question later in the paper. Question 3 for AQA is a translation question. You get 5 sentences to translate from English into Spanish. Here's an example of this question taken from the June 2018 paper. This question is worth 10 marks, and 10 minutes is enough to answer it. Taking a look at the mark scheme, you get 5 marks for conveying key messages, and the other 5 for accuracy. Here's one way to translate these sentences. Usually there's more than one accepted answer. Firstly, I eat lots of fruit would be como mucha fruta. The second one, I prefer to download music would be prefiero descargar música. Thirdly, the poor man lives on the street. El hombre pobre vive en la calle. Be careful with calle as it's a feminine noun, not masculine, so la calle, not el calle. And you could put the adjective pobre before the noun hombre in this case, and that would work too. I bought a new laptop on Saturday would be compré un nuevo ordenador portátil el sábado. You would need the accent mark in compré, as otherwise it would mean he, she buys, not I bought. Apart from that, accents are not really necessary, only on words where the meaning is changed. Lastly, I think I'm going to study Spanish next year. Pienso que voy a estudiar español el año próximo. There are other ways of saying next year, like el año que viene. And that's a translation question. The sentences do normally get trickier as they go on, and more tenses get involved. With this question, I'd always say attempt all parts of each sentence, trying your best, and spread your answer out on both of the lines you are given, so if you want to make any changes, your work won't be too messy. The last question for AQA and the third question for Edexcel is the 90-word writing question. You always get 2 options and you have to pick one. Here is the June 2019 question 4.1. Escribes un blog para una página web española sobre el tiempo libre de los jóvenes. Menciona. And then just like question 2, you get 4 bullet points. I'm first going to go through how to plan this question, and then look at the mark scheme, and finally show you an example written by me. I would strongly recommend you plan this question, and I would say a solid 5 minutes of planning will make the rest of your 15 minutes of writing much easier. Now, how do you go about planning? Firstly, of course, read the entire question. Then identify and write down the tense of each bullet point. If you are looking to score in the top mark band for quality of language in this question, you should use a wider variety of tenses than what's given to you in the question. In this example, the first bullet point, ¿Qué hiciste en tus vacaciones el año pasado?, is written in the preterite tense. So I would begin my answer for this bullet point using the pretérito tense. However, to access marks in the top mark band, I could use another tense, for example the subjunctive. Then the next bullet point, si prefieres ir de vacaciones con tu familia o con el colegio, is in the pretérito tense. To add complexity, I would add another tense, let's say the imperfect for this example. The third bullet point, ¿qué vas a hacer para celebrar tu próximo cumpleaños?, is in the near future. And you don't need additional tenses for each bullet point. But if you are confident in using a wider variety of tenses, I would recommend it, so let's use the will future tense. And lastly, ¿qué actividades te gusta hacer para ayudar a otras personas?, is in the present tense. And I won't use another tense here. So that's the tense part of the planning done, identifying the main tense for each bullet point and any additional tenses you can use if you are confident in doing so. Another really important step in planning is writing down phrases or sentence starters that will increase the complexity of your writing. As I mentioned for question 2, on my website I have a PDF that has loads of these phrases, so memorize a few and use them in your work. Now, the final step of planning, making some notes on how you are going to answer each bullet point. You can do this in English or Spanish. Okay, now I've done that, so for each bullet point I've made some basic notes for myself when I go to answer. Let's now take a look at the mark scheme. This 16-mark question is split into 10 marks for content and 6 marks for quality of language, just like question 2. You can pause the video to have a look at the individual mark bands. And to remind you, all of the work you produce will be marked, and you do not need to write equal amounts for each bullet point. Also, in the quality of language bands, it mentions minor and major errors. AQA defines major errors as those that seriously affect communication, so if your writing is not understandable because of an error, so like using an incorrect verb or noun. And this is an answer I've written. El año pasado fui a Grecia con mi familia. El primer día visitamos algunos lugares de interés y probé comidas nuevas y deliciosas. Cuando sea mayor me gustaría visitar los Estados Unidos. A mi modo de ver, prefiero ir de vacaciones con mi familia, dado que me gusta pasar tiempo con mis padres. Sin embargo, cuando era pequeño, me gustaba mucho jugar con mis amigos. Para celebrar mi próximo cumpleaños, voy a invitar a mis amigos a mi casa para una fiesta. Comeremos mucha comida y será divertido y emocionante. A veces ayudo a mi madre a preparar la cena o limpiar la casa. También me gusta hacer trabajo voluntario en mi comunidad, como recoger basura en la playa. I have split my work into 4 paragraphs, one for each bullet point, and I strongly recommend you do this too in the exam. And hopefully you can see how I've used my plan to help me write my final answer. The last thing regarding question 4 I want to show you is an example written by AQA. This was the June 2020 question 4.3. Pause the screen and have a read of this. This is the level you should be aiming for to get top marks in this question. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. That's it for this video. The last thing I want to mention is my tuition services. This is my second year of providing GCSE Spanish online lessons for both higher and foundation tier. So go to astarspanish.com/tutoring to see all of the necessary information if you are interested. And email me or message me on TikTok if you have any questions. Thank you for watching and best of luck with any mock exams. I have lots of GCSE Spanish content on the way, so subscribe for that. Adios!